Welcome into another special edition of the Fast Lane Trail out here with you. I am joined by, maybe if we made a big family tree, this guy would be related to Ed, but it's maybe not. Same last name. It's a common last name. Jacob Lane, the founder and podcast director for the State of Louisville. He's also the host of a great podcast from the Pink Seats. So, Jacob, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. This is like you couldn't have written the script any better here with the name of the show and everything. I appreciate it. Excited to be a fellow Lane on the podcast, I guess.
Yeah, well, maybe you'll meet Ed one day, but we'll jump right into it. Um, this game is quite interesting. Couple of storylines into this, and a big one that the injury status of Malik Cunningham is now up in the air.
Yeah.
What has the coaching staff talked about? Is there an expectation that he's going to play? Because outside of his experience, this is a premier dude who's putting up numbers that I see it every time Louisville plays compares to Lamar Jackson, which is not a small feat.
Yeah. So to start with the injury, so what happened in the game last week against Boston College was Malik was hit in the head, I think in the third quarter on a targeting play, went down for a slide. And you know how it is in football these days where defenders are already kind of launching to make a play. So he gets hit helmet to helmet, targeting there on that play. Goes out for a play, but actually ends up coming back in. Nothing, checked with doctors, everything was clear. But Scott Satterfield told the media this week that he was hit again in the head just a couple of drives later. And at that point, the doctors felt like he wasn't himself. And they, considering everything that had just happened a couple of days prior with Tua Tagovailoa, they played it safe and kept Malik out. Malik is now, from what we've been told, in concussion protocol or in something similar. I don't know if they've actually labeled it a concussion or anything outside of a head injury, but he is day to day. We don't know if he'll play. I think it'll probably be a late decision, game time type of deal. And if not, it'll be Brock Doman, a backup JUCO quarterback who came in last week. So Louisville, they need Malik Cunningham in this one. We'll obviously get into just the thoughts of the team and what to kind of expect. But Malik Cunningham is really the engine that carries this team at this point. And if he's not out there, it's going to be a rough go for Louisville.
Looking at this matchup, let's start with a Louisville offense that is pretty prolific. You obviously have Malik Cunningham, who is your do everything guy. Let's say they don't have him. Who are a couple guys that you feel like that need to step up in this one?
Yeah, well, if they don't have Malik Cunningham, that's going to be quite the blow. But they also might be without 3 scholarship running backs. Jalen Mitchell was the team's leading rusher last year. Tyon Evans, a transfer from Tennessee, who's played well, and Trevion Cooley, who's an up and coming sophomore, all injured, all questionable, game time decision type of deals. So Louisville could be down to 2 running backs, 2 scholarship running backs, and Maurice Turner being a true freshman who's just barely played. And then Jawar Jordan, who's also been banged up, Syracuse transfer. So that's going to be interesting. The running game is obviously the bread and butter of what Scott Satterfield does, the outside inside zone. It's no surprise what you're going to get each week with Louisville. The added wrinkle there is Malik Cunningham. Look, if they don't have him, they don't have the running backs. It's going to be really, really hard for anybody for Louisville to get going, whether it's the wide receivers who really need to step up and show that they can get separation and make plays. Tyler Hudson is a really dynamic kid. As well as Amari Huggins-Bruce. Those guys can make plays. They've proven it. Marshawn Ford included, Braden Smith, but they've not done it consistently. Malik Cunningham has really struggled passing this year, which is kind of surprising in year 6. They've really leaned into the run offense, and the opportunities just haven't been there. So with Malik on the field, I expect a lot of running. And then at that point, the wide receivers just got to make plays when they get the opportunity. Tyler Hudson, Amari Huggins-Bruce, Marshawn Ford. Without Malik Cunningham, if it's Brock Doman, who knows, man? I don't know who's going to be catching passes. I don't know what will be happening on the field, but it won't be anything we've seen this year. So it's just really challenging to even slightly have an idea of what Louisville will be without knowing the status of Malik Cunningham.
Flipping to the defensive side of the ball, and then outside of last week where they allowed a struggling Boston College team and Zay Flowers to take over a game, and the UVA offense hasn't looked great this season. So where is the defense at this point, and obviously looking to bounce back after a somewhat disappointing performance?
Yeah, it's definitely been a topsy-turvy kind of season for the defense. They came in with a lot of hype. We expected them to be much better. Defensive coordinator Brian Brown was retained by Scott Satterfield in the offseason, which was a surprise to many. And so far, we've kind of seen what's been the status quo for Louisville's defense over the first 3 years of the coaching staff's tenure. It's big play after big play. And in between the big plays, they're making stops. They're flying around. They're doing what they do. But it's those 5, 6, 7 plays every single game. Last week, I don't have the exact statistic, but it was something like in 5 plays, Boston College gained over 250 yards of offense. And the rest of their 20 to 25 plays, they gained not even close to that. So you're talking about Louisville really giving up chunk plays of 60, 70, 50 yards. The numbers are staggering. But if they can limit that, if they can get the right matchups, if they can kind of hone in on what they do well, which is playing fast, playing physical, kind of flying all over the line, unbalanced, different attacking groups blitzing, and then kind of mixing in different coverages. If they can do that and be able to kind of maintain and not give up those big plays, then it could definitely be one of their better games of the season. The question is, at this point, there's really no faith in believing that they're going to show up for a full 4-quarter game. So the question is, can you limit how many big plays you give up for the game?
Getting to the quarterback, obviously UVA struggled on the offensive line. They have the quarterback in Brennan Armstrong. They have the weapons, whether it's Keaton Thompson, Billy Kemp, among others. Like, there's definitely a talented receiving core at Virginia. It's just, is the offensive line going to hold up enough to get them the ball? Keaton Thompson, Lavelle Davis,
Yeah.
Datavian Wicks, like, they're deep at their receiver position, and Zay Flowers went for 154 last week. So how important will it be for Louisville just to get to the quarterback and try to disrupt the rhythm that a UVA offense can bring? Because the
Yeah.
UVA offense hasn't hit
No.
at all cylinders at all this year. They've not looked great.
No, the numbers are really interesting. And we said this on our show this week. This is not the UVA team that you expect in terms of the weapons that are there. And in a kind of parallel way, it's a lot like Louisville. But what Virginia really can do here, especially with the wide receivers, is just look to try to confuse Louisville's defense all season long. When teams have mixed in some play action RPO type plays, you'll find a Louisville defensive end playing too far off the edge and giving up, one of the gaps for a big play and a missed tackle. That's all all it's taken this year is just that. You've seen linebackers just completely miss tight ends. You've seen safeties getting lined up on, NFL type receivers, safeties who really aren't cover safeties. So Virginia needs to exploit those matchups. Lavelle Davis Jr. I see a big play from him this weekend. I don't know if you watched the Florida State Louisville game, but Johnny Wilson just absolutely torched Louisville's defense. And Lavelle Davis is built in the exact same way. I expect the offensive coordinators there, Tony Stewart, Tony Elliott, they've got to be just absolutely salivating to get him the ball. And same with, Wicks and Thompson. If they can do what Boston College did, which was go all in on max protect and really build that pocket and make sure that Armstrong has the time to throw, whether or not Louisville's corners are going to show up, safeties are going to make the play is a good guess, is it for anybody. And Virginia can absolutely take advantage of that. And Armstrong is a dynamic passer. I just think it takes one game for him to get it going. If you've ever heard the metaphor in basketball or the saying that you just need to see a free throw or a layup go in and go through the net to get going, I think Armstrong connects on a big play early in this game, and they're just going to open everything up against Louisville. It really worries me, that this is a game where Louisville might just get kind of put underneath early, and it might be it. And the rest of the season kind of could go down in Charlottesville.
Yeah, we'll touch on if it goes down in a second. But let's say Malik Cunningham plays, and we're kind of flipping back and forth between the offense and the defense here.
Yeah.
How different is he? Like, he's just built different, right? Like, he's so fast. He's so, but you touch on the lack of a passing game. Is that what you want to see in this one? Because it's a UVA secondary that's given up some plays this year, and the defense was the question mark. It's really been the opposite. Defense has showed up, the offense hasn't for UVA.
Right.
But the question still sort of remains: can the UVA defense hold up in the explosive play department?
Yeah, I mean that's the same question for Louisville, so it's really interesting to kind of just see what's going to budge in this game. I'm looking at the UVA numbers, and I see a defense that has some good numbers and some pretty poor numbers. If I'm being honest with you, I think the passing game is the opportunity. But yet again, Louisville's wide receivers, they have struggled with getting open, even against kind of pedestrian secondaries. I didn't think Boston College's group of corners and safeties really were great. They were good. Don't get me wrong, but what they did was played man on man physical coverage where they pressed Louisville and were all up in the guys, and they just really couldn't get any separation. I know Anthony Johnson is going to be looking to have a big game here against his former team. That 6'2", 6'3", long stride, long arm corner has given Louisville a lot of problems this year. If they can really just keep Louisville from getting separation, Louisville will do what they do each week from an offensive standpoint, and it'll be predictable. They'll run a lot of RPO where Malik's going to read at the line, and typically he's going to keep it, and then the passing game will come in on third downs. Depending on what the down and distances or the distances. But this offense has been predictable in every way passing, and it's going to likely be that way again this weekend. It would be, I don't want to say a miracle, but I think Louisville fans would really be excited to see something different, if I'm being honest with you.
Looking at this game, both teams winless in the conference. Louisville 0-3, UVA 0-2, both 2-3 on the year. There's a lot of, I'll just say, noise around Scott Satterfield. It's been around for the last couple of years. Ever since he really flirted with the South Carolina job.
Sure.
But so how important is it, frankly, for either team to get this first ACC win? And I don't want to say right the ship because Virginia is under a transition, but really just kind of build any sort of momentum towards the back half of your season.
Yeah, look, this is where the games go from being, I don't want to say easy. Obviously, they've lost to Boston College, they've lost to Florida State, but this is kind of where the schedule goes from being the middle of the pack to the back half of the pack teams to now the big boys after Virginia. When you're talking about playing against four ranked teams in Wake Forest, Clemson, NC State, Kentucky, I mean, it's really meek for Louisville down the stretch. And Scott Satterfield needs this so bad. I mean, I think every week for the last 3 or 4 weeks has been a must win. Coming off of what happened late last year with the Kentucky blowout and then losing to Air Force, and then coming into the year and getting blanketed by Syracuse, which is something that nobody saw coming outside of Andrea Adelson. I always want to point that out. She's one of the lone wolves. They got that right. But it's just been a complete disaster. I think the timeline for Scott Satterfield being on the hot seat has been sped up by about 5, 6, 7 weeks, maybe in a full season at this point, kind of with how things have started. He needs the Virginia win, but that's not going to do much for him in terms of goodwill, besides just doing what you should be doing at this point. And at the end of the year, he's got 6 games after the bye week. They're going to have to win 4 of those to even have, it's more than just a bowl at this point. Louisville needs more than 5, 6 wins. 6 would probably be the number that would keep him very safe. 5 would be flirting with it, but I think what Louisville's headed towards likely a 4-8 season, just kind of mapping out the rest of the year. And that's likely going to end in the Scott Satterfield era here in Louisville. Now, listen, I want to also point out for the listeners who may not be familiar with Louisville and the financial situation from afar, you've probably seen over the last couple of years. Bobby Petrino got a big buyout. There was a whole ordeal with the AD when the whole Rick Pitino thing went down. There was the issue with the Papa John's Cardinal Stadium. There's just been a ton of things financially for Louisville. Chris Mack even included. There's been buyouts. There's been turnover. There's been a lot of financial woes for Louisville. And they don't necessarily have the ability to go out and hire a Jeff Brom, who many people say is kind of the shoe-in perfect fit for Louisville. That's a coach that's making $5-6 million, almost double what Scott Satterfield is making. Louisville's going to have a really, really tough season, really, really tough choice from an administrative standpoint on what to do with Scott Satterfield. At this point, he's got to just win. Each week is going to buy him more time. He needs wins. And if they get blown out against Virginia on Saturday, heading into a bye week, I don't think it would shock me if Louisville moved on. I just don't think at any point over the next 8 weeks of the season, 7 weeks of the season, that there's going to be enough done for him to keep his job. And maybe, just maybe, Louisville pulls the ripcord there and just tries to get ahead of the coaching carousel. That's likely going to be pretty crazy this offseason.
Yeah, who knows? After last year when Notre Dame, USC, Oklahoma, LSU all changed coaches, you never know what's going to happen. Let's let's talk about this game here. One final question for you. 3-point spread. Louisville's a road favorite, over under 51. Do you have a pick in this one? Are you leaning any sort of way, and what are your overall keys to the game?
Yeah, so we'll go one by one here. I think Virginia covers that easy. I predicted on our show last night a 24-10 victory for Virginia. That's assuming
Wow.
Malik Cunningham does not play, and it is under just what I believe, knowing what just happened with Tua Tagovailoa, the kind of just loud conversation with concussions right now. I think Louisville, unless something has changed or the prognosis has significantly gotten better, I would be shocked if Malik Cunningham plays. And without Malik Cunningham, it's going to be hard to watch. Look, Brock Doman's a good kid, but he is not the answer at quarterback for Louisville. I think it could be a rough game there for Louisville. I don't think they go over 51 between the two teams. I think it's going to be a fairly low-scoring game because I do think Louisville's defense is going to play pretty well here. I think the opportunity is there for big plays, and that's how Virginia will ultimately win this game, is by the big play. And then as far as the keys to the game, it's simple for Louisville on offense. What if you don't have Malik Cunningham? You got to take advantage of the mystery of Brock Doman. You got to do something different with your offense, come out heavy passing, just try to switch it up to keep Virginia on their toes and really take advantage of them not having any film on Brock Doman. From a defensive standpoint, tackle, read your assignments, stay in the gaps. If Louisville can play with strong eye discipline, if they can tackle and make plays at the point of attack, I think the defensive line is going to bounce back after not having a sack last week. I think if Monty Montgomery and Dorian Jones, the two kind of star linebackers, along with the transfer Momo Sanogo, can play well inside, I think Louisville has got the ability here to win this game. But ultimately, I think the big play is going to continue to bite them in the rear. And I think that not having Malik Cunningham is going to be the ultimate reason that Louisville falls in this game by 2 touchdowns.
Well, Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me this week. How can Who's fans or anyone that wants to learn more about the Cardinals, obviously basketball season also right around the corner,
Absolutely,
can connect with you and the state of Louisville?
Yeah, well, I would first plug the state of Louisville. If you're interested in anything, from the ACC, from Louisville Cardinals, whether it be football, basketball's coming up soon. So a lot of preview content about to come out, especially with the Louisville team that nobody knows what's going to happen. Even here, we have no clue what we're going to see game one. It's going to be a big mystery. So a lot of fun to stay in touch with that. And then all the football content. Stateoflouisville.com is the website. State of Louisville, no the in there, stateoflouisville.com. And then you can give me a follow on Twitter at Jacob Lane 08. 08. Want to make sure I clarify that, not an O, 08. And who knows, a little dad content, some Louisville content, all the fun stuff in there. Definitely worth your follow.
Oh man, thanks so much for joining me this week to help preview the game.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
As always, you can connect with us at Trey Lyle VT, at Fastlane, Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thank you so much for listening to this special edition of the Fastlane.